When we started writing our thoughts down on paper, it opened up endless possibilities. Ideas could grow beyond the borders of the mind, and it changed the world. Somewhere along the way, we lost touch with paper, distracted by devices made for every purpose except for thinking and focus. On edge, waiting for the next notification. But what if new technology didn't pull us away from paper, but brought us closer to it? Listen. That's not paper. It's the sound of the new Remarkable Paper Pro, rewriting the future. A paper tablet with a true color ink display, gentle reading light, and unheard of tactility. With digital features for taking notes, thinking, and organizing, without any distractions. Paper is about to change the world again. Get your paper tablet at remarkable.com today.
This week we did a podcast with the Knickerbrothers podcast with Pat and Bear. Really enjoyed it, had a good time. Check out their show. They're doing a lot of really good things over there.
Hello and welcome to the New York Knickerbrothers podcast, home of the greatest crossovers since Jamal Crawford. I'm one of your hosts, Patrick Gallagher, and alongside me is a man who finally got that pardon he was waiting more than 4 years for. So break out the face paint and furs, baby. It's your brother and mine, Bear Shrivastov. Bear, I know you'd usually defend yourself here, but we have a very important show to get to. So you want to introduce our guests?
Yeah, Pat, thanks for setting me up for success there. I'm just gonna breeze right by it. We have a couple really special guests here on this episode of the Knickerbrothers podcast. I would like to just give a little quick story so everyone knows the magnitude of this moment.
Sorry, the magnitude. Go on.
So
I didn't even think about the magnitude of the moment.
Okay. When I was in college, I was in school in Philadelphia, huge Knicks fan, grew up in the New York area, as did my brother. When I went to college, it was 2012, 2013, and no one around me was a Knicks fan. Everyone I knew who was into basketball was a Sixers fan, and the Knicks were, as you all remember, on what was, at the time, the far and away the best season that they had ever been on in my entire life. And so I was just looking to eat up content about what was going on with the team. And I went on to the iTunes store, and I guarantee I searched like New York Knicks podcast. And the podcast hosted by our two guests popped up. And I started listening. I've followed throughout like a really great season. And little did we know it would immediately turn south for a long time. Now I am almost 30, and we're here. We've got Marc and Jay from the New York Knicks podcast on. How's it going, guys? Thanks for coming on.
Good. Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it.
So at 12-13, you were in Philadelphia, so that's when the trust the process kind of started.
Mm-hmm.
And any day now it's going to work out, right, for Philly?
Any day.
Yeah, any day. I think the fact that the process ended with Paul George scoring 16 points a game, I think, but they're about to turn the corner, I think.
I feel like they should probably try to move on from Embiid now and not make the process a suicide pact.
Yeah. They're man, we're in such a better place than they are. I don't even know what the Sixers would do. Like,
whatever you want to say, maybe the Knicks it'd be great if they win the title this year. Maybe they won't, but at least we're in the nice place where like this team should be good for a while. Our starting five is all kind of going into their prime. We're not like praying Joel Embiid is healthy or Paul George can get the fountain, discover the fountain of youth.
Yeah, the Sixers fans I know are literally like holding on to hope. They're like, no, like just wait, like we're gonna get in, we'll be the 9th seed, and then Embiid will be healthy, and then we're gonna be tough to beat. And it's like, no, you're not. He's gonna get hurt again. It's what happens every single year. Yeah,
he's gonna get hurt again. He can no longer really play tough defense. He He's still, when healthy, a good player, but not the player he was before. Paul George, I'm shocked at age 36 he's getting worse. I never thought that would happen. Why would you go all in on the run? They have Maxey, they have McLean, the guy, Jared, whatever. They've got some pieces, but yeah, they're not. It's so nice that the Knicks are one of the better teams, one of the top 6-7 teams in the NBA.
Yeah, for sure. I want to get into the current state of the Knicks in a bit, but first I wanted to ask you guys, and Jay, maybe you can jump in here. One of the themes of our podcast is just like our history as Knicks fans and like what following this team, like what our journey is following this team over the years. So I just was wondering, maybe Jay, can you let us know like when did you become a Knick? What was the era? What was going on?
So I started really getting into the Knicks around 91, 92. So I jumped in right when they were good for like a decade straight, and I was so confused when they started being bad. I thought they were like the best run franchise, and then I'm like, what the hell happened? And so then Mark and I started a comedy podcast around 2008, and after the podcast, we would talk Knicks for like a half hour, and I was like, well, we should just record this and make this a show. So that's when we started doing the Knicks podcast. It was right when the Knicks signed Melo and got Amari and
Amari was before they got Melo.
Yeah. So we're like, oh, the Knicks are going to be good for a long time. This is like the perfect time to start a podcast. It's going to be like the 90s all over again. And then they were good for like 2.5 seasons, and we had to go through like 3 out of their 4 worst seasons of all time. But that's how hardcore of a fan we are. We did a podcast through all those terrible, terrible seasons.
At least you have someone, you're doing the podcast, you have someone else who's obligated to bitch, you can bitch with, like for like a half hour, 45 minutes a week, basically.
It seems insane that you guys didn't stop at some point. Like,
I agree completely.
I'm very glad you didn't, but it seems like that it must have done something to you.
Well,
there was 4 or 5 2 weeks ago, and I was ready to call it quits on this podcast. I'll tell you that much.
There was 3 straight off seasons where I'm just like, I can't do it anymore. And Mark's like, just they're gonna turn it around. Just keep going. They just drafted this guy Ntilikina. Things are gonna turn around.
Yeah. Kevin Knox scored 18 points last game. Like we're here. Yeah.
I feel like if Tibbs didn't start turning it around, the show. I mean, like we went through a lot with this team.
Yeah. What do you guys think was the low point? And was it during your was it I don't know, was it trading KP? Was it
pretending Kevin Knox will be good? Here, I got it.
Yeah.
This was a low point for me. I going into the Kevin Knox draft was like, I think my number one guy I don't want is Kevin Knox. I think he's going to be garbage. What I really knew about him was that like his own coach was like, he's not ready for the NBA. And like, I'm like, he sees him every day. But the Knicks, of course, worked him out against Mikal Bridges and what was it? They had like 3.
Was Shea in that workout? Because he was.
Yeah, everyone who's better was in the workout. But anyway, the Knicks were like, let me take the guy who's the biggest project ever. And so Jay and I did a show. We saw the draft and everything else, and was like, God, what a nightmare. This is hang on, but this is 2017 or 18. So 2018, the draft happens. I have a son. My son was, I guess, he would be 18 to about 9 then, and so he couldn't stay up late enough to watch the draft. And I was just doing the podcast, but so we said we'd watch the draft the next day and record it. And I pretended I hadn't watched the draft. I had to watch the draft with him and pretend I was excited about Knox. That was my lowest point, just to get him excited about Kevin Knox, because holy shit, I have to pretend this team's going to be good because I wanted to root for the goddamn Knicks.
Well, this brings up the logical question here, which is that your low point of being a Knicks fan, or is that your low point of fatherhood?
I mean, I unfortunately probably could top that fatherhood, but
I have kids too, so I know.
But yeah, and thankfully, he never lets me forget. Anytime we talk about the Knicks being good and something being good, he's like, but you told me Kevin Knox was going to be good. He's like, and Frank Ntilikina, what? I'm like, I literally was lying to you about Knox. He's like, whatever.
I still think there's a world where Frank Ntilikina is a good player.
Yeah, it's in Europe.
It's not, it's not this world, but there's some world in which he's a perfectly effective 3-and-D wing on a competently run team.
Yeah, I mean, they did try to make this guy who had 0 point guard skills and like all the skills of a defensive 3 a point guard.
Yeah.
So we might have screwed him up.
It's weird though, because you watch his footage of him from France, and he did play point guard. He looked semi-competent in a less competitive league. But yeah, I think if the Spurs had drafted Ntilikina, he would still suck. Okay, let's go on.
I mean, it was such a tough draft because we were sitting there like, oh my God, like both Bridges and Shea are all on the table. Like the Knicks have their pick of all these great players. Mm-hmm. And then they just draft Knox instead. It was just, I don't think I'm ever going to get over that draft.
I remember specifically wanting Michael Porter Jr. in that draft.
I wanted Porter Jr.
I don't care that his back is terrible. You take the guy with who I thought, not that I know anything, the guy who I thought has the most upside, because why the hell not? You know?
Yeah, Mark wanted Porter Jr. and I wanted one of the Bridges.
I thought the Bridges. I was like, Mikal Bridges makes sense, but Porter has a higher upside, makes sense. I would say Jay and I were completely wrong about Ntilikina. We were both on board for that. Neither of us thought about Donovan Mitchell.
We weren't excited. We were just like, okay, fine.
Prototypically, he made sense, like taller point guard that can play defense and blah, blah, blah.
Well, there was like a big era of like prioritizing length over everything else, like around like that time period of the Knicks.
Yeah.
And like length is obviously really good, but it was like the only thing they cared about, which is kind of why they got Knox. It's why they got Ntilikina. They're like, they can't dribble, they can't really do anything else, but they're big, long guys. So
it's like how the Jets will draft like they're like, oh, we got this quarterback. He's 6'5", 230. He can run the 40 in 3 seconds. You're like, oh my God, can he throw a pass? No. But everything else, I'm sure we can teach him how to throw the ball.
Yeah, if we just teach him this one skill, he can be a quarterback.
Yeah, just. And Jay nailed the KP draft. But going into that draft, he was telling us he was talking about Porzingis from the middle of that season that the Knicks have to take him or like hopefully they would get him. And Porzingis, whatever. He was like obviously he was good for her time. Now he's on the Celtics and what. I wish the Knicks hadn't just completely screwed up things with Porzingis, but I think the Phil Jackson era was just a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. I think the only example I can think of where a guy in Porzingis' position turns down like the max extension as off his rookie contract and demands a trade.
He didn't actually get the offer, right? They traded him before.
Well,
they thought he might turn it down.
He told them like, I'm going to turn it down unless like you have to trade me. And I think that might be the only example of that ever happening, at least with a guy of like that level, you know?
Yeah, I mean that was it's crazy also because you're like we wanted Towns, and now Towns got developed elsewhere and he's on the Knicks and he's looking. Yeah. I thought Towns was a mistake. He looks awesome.
Yeah, me too. We were pretty divided on this podcast. Pat was pretty high on the trade when it happened, and I was pretty low. I'm a big Randall fan. I'm like one of the holdouts, so I was sad to see him go.
We are too.
You should go visit Minnesota so you could be the only Randall fan. Yeah. They seem to freaking hate him. Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean he's a terrible fit over there, and
he's just the target of ire. I mean, he's going to get the blame there because of the change that they made and because they moved away from this beloved figure, right? I think it's less about Randall, although there are ways that he plays that are clearly frustrating to watch, as we all know. But it's more just about like this beloved Minnesota-centric guy who was there for almost a decade is suddenly gone, and the team is worse. And so now, what do we do with all these feelings that we have, right? We were in the Western Conference Finals last year. Where do all these feelings go? And the answer is they go directly into the liver of Julius Randle, I guess.
Is there a more hated, and he's not, I mean, he started off well, but he's having, even like statistically, his numbers are bad now. Mm-hmm. But is there a more hated 3-time All-Star in the history of the NBA?
Embiid.
Hated by whom?
Yeah, like just hate, I don't know. Like the entire time he was like, not like post, like just during, like Embiid, you could say, but like Philly fans like Embiid.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
hated by the team he is on. The fans of the team he's on. Like Knicks fans seem to hate him. Hate Randall. He goes, and I was a Randall supporter. Goes to Minnesota. Minnesota fans hate him.
It's weird.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's you know what? Okay, let's put aside the Minnesota thing for a second. I think the Knicks' hate of Randall was always overblown.
Yeah.
Yes.
He was the only good player we had for a really long time. He was like post Melo, it was just a real black hole of talent until he showed up.
His first year was very mediocre. Lots of spin moves, lots of hole in the ball, and people are like, well, what the hell is this? More garbage. Mm-hmm. Then they're going to replace him. They draft OB, and everyone's like, oh, I'm excited. The guy can jump. So great. So everyone's excited. Then Randall goes full all-star mode, and people are like, oh, my God, maybe we have something. And then he's just horrendous against the Hawks. But also, he had literally no help whatsoever.
Do you guys remember the starting lineup in that Hawks series?
What did you say?
Do you guys remember the starting lineup in that Hawks series?
Okay, so it would be was Derrick Rose starting?
Yeah, starting after game 2, yes.
Okay, because Elfrid Payton was starting first.
He started game 1.
They started game 1. They had RJ.
Yep.
Mitch was playing, or was he hurt?
Mitch was hurt.
Sure.
Mitch was hurt. No, you had the guy from Philly. What's his name?
Nerlens Noel.
Nerlens Noel was coming off. He was coming off the bench. Yep.
Okay. And Reggie Bullock.
Reggie Bullock was starting, and Taj Gibson. And so people are blaming Randall for not dominating with that supporting cast.
Yeah, clearly Randall was the problem with that team.
Well, really, they should never have dropped Elfrid Payton from the starting lineup.
Yeah.
He was the the engine that really made the team go.
Patrick, your levels are a lot lower than everybody else's.
Didn't Elfrid Payton get 20 assists in a game this year before being cut?
He did. Sorry,
yeah.
Jay, what was that?
I said your levels are a lot lower than everybody else's.
Oh. Well, I can turn up the gain. It used to be the other way.
Yeah. You're turned up all the way here, Pat.
Okay. This is good podcasting.
It's always good when Jay just likes to correct. We have such issues on our show. He likes to correct. Anytime he hears another show, he's like, "Oh, it's not so easy to make it the levels right."
Swinging in. All right. Cool. So Bear asked for your low point, and Mark, we got an answer from you. Jay, do you have a particular low point in this decade and a half of Knicks fandom where you've had a podcast?
I think involved when you're studying for the CPA and pretending to care about the Knicks.
That was a low point in my life. I think I might have to go with when Mark and I were talking about how when Bargnani gets bought out, he might be helpful to spread the floor a little. And oh my God, they traded 3 draft picks and 3 players for Bargnani.
That was pretty bad. I really think that team
is big, man.
I really think that team next year could have been I guess everyone was old anyway, but Bargnani was just a complete disaster.
Well, it's not even the fit. It was that there were rumors he was going to get bought out, and then all of a sudden they traded all their assets and their cap space, and so that was the all-in move, and then it was a bad fit, and he got injury prone. So it was just because
that was such a disaster. The Knicks were a couple years later, or a little bit later, they were you could have Kyle Lowry for the 2016 first round pick. We can't move first rounds. We don't need this guy who's going to be pretty good for the next 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
The Knicks could have Kyle Lowry, but they were we can't trade first anymore because we have no idea what we're doing.
We don't want to get fleeced by the Raptors again. That kind of thing.
Right.
And not that I like Lowry, but that would have been probably a good addition in 2016.
I really thought Lowry was near the tail end of his prime, and then he played another 8 solid years. So I was wrong.
Won a title 3 years later. He was a starter on a title team 3 years later.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he was. The Noah signing was maybe
There's
not.
So many low points you can pick from. Really,
I wouldn't say the lowest point, but that was really bad.
Following the getting Jeremy Lin's offer sheet that he signed with Houston to the Knicks brass while they were in that hotel. Just following that story on what was Twitter at the time was so like it made me so sad and anxious at the same time, because it was so, to me, so I mean, I made this point a while back on a different podcast. I liked Jeremy Lin, and I would have loved to re-sign him and give a run with all that talent, right? I thought that we look back on that time, putting the cultural significance of the achievement to one side, right? We look back on that time with some rose-colored glasses. He was a good backup point guard who we didn't know was any good, like playing really well, maybe a little bit above his head for 3 weeks. Right? That's kind of the story of Linsanity. And then the cultural stuff is a whole other issue, which has much more significance than that. But I still would have loved to see Jeremy Lin come back, and then following, and I took it for granted that he would, because why would you?
Right.
This
Same.
24-year-old, guy who came out of nowhere, who's now like maybe the most marketable player in the world if you treat this correctly. Why would you let that go over $15 million in the third year of a contract or whatever it was? And I know that with the luxury tax, they told us it would be $40 million out of Dolan's pocket or whatever. That's kind of all nonsense. You have 3 years to make adjustments to make all that work. Fine.
Yeah.
What if you could get a fatter version of Felton? Would that be make it better?
And so we go through this whole rigmarole with like, the Knicks don't have his offer sheet yet, so the timing on the 3 days hasn't started, and they're running through the hotel trying to avoid Houston Rockets reps so they don't have to get the piece of paper, and then they don't sign him anyway, and then we hear that they're bringing back chubby Ray Felton for another year, and it was just like the most miserable 5 days I can remember. And it was when I was like, even though it was before the 2012-13 season, obviously, in which the Knicks were really good, it was just like, oh no, nothing is fixed. Like we got through Isaiah Thomas and Larry Brown and all that era. Nothing is fixed. Everything is still awful. And it's always going to be awful. This is basically how I felt.
I could just keep coming up with bad things to say. Like the point in the Knicks fandom where at some point Knicks fans were saying, I think this Ron Baker guy could be part of our future. He's kind of like
that Alexei Shved, he's kind of interesting.
I thought he was interesting. I'm like, they're letting him go. He was the only guy worth watching.
I wonder what Ron Baker's up to nowadays.
I assume he's working on a farm milking cows.
Yeah, he seems like he seems like he has to do a regular job. He doesn't look like the kind of guy who can play in the NBA.
Yeah, like you're like, hey, did I get legal advice from Ron Baker?
Yeah, right. You go.
Did I buy life insurance from Ron Baker? Was that Ron Baker?
So my understanding, not to change the subject from podcast gold Ron Baker, but my understanding is that you guys are ending the podcast after the season. Is that correct?
Yes, Jay.
Yeah, 15 long years, and we're gonna throw in the towel.
What? So first, I guess, what made you guys come to that decision?
I told Jay one day we were going to end the show, and Jay was like, "Sure." Are you afraid that the New York Knicks are going to win the championship in 2025-26, and you will have abandoned this podcast?
Well, then we'll know that we've cursed the Knicks for the last 15 years.
Yes. Well, at least we'll know for sure we were the issue.
No, basically, Mark wanted to spend more time with his family.
That doesn't really sound like a weird, like, what are you doing all the time, Mark? You're not spending time with your... I find it, sometimes it's harder to find the time to record, and I don't know. We've been doing it for a while.
We also have a comedy podcast, and we can't do, between the two of us, it's hard to schedule two. And even though we have a much bigger following for the Knicks podcast, we do have more fun doing the comedy one. So we decided
we have another show going nowhere instead. We want to focus on one show not going anywhere. We want to focus on the other show, smaller show going nowhere.
We figured we'd focus on the less popular, less profitable one, because we always make good choices.
We also thought maybe we gave the Knicks like a deadline. They know they have to win the title this year. It would work out.
Well, I know previously on your show you guys had said that you would go until the Knicks won the NBA championship.
Yeah, but we didn't
And
think
so
it would
now
take
you really
15
put it on them to win this year.
They have to win this year. Yeah. They
Yeah.
have to, like, it's going to, I assume we'll be part of the Michael Jordan type documentary the Knicks are doing around. Like they'll be like, and Marc and Jay said they would leave the.
They'll do that when like Jalen Brunson and Kat and Mikal Bridges and everyone else is like, no, I'm not going to do the documentary unless you pay me, and then they'll start looking for other options.
Right.
Yeah.
Or next year we'll get interviews after the game, after Game 6, the NBA Finals, when the Knicks finally win, and Jalen will just look straight down the camera and they say, "Oh, thank God Marc and Jay quit."
We could.
I mean, I feel like we are the black sheep of the Knicks community.
Black Cloud.
When all of the Knicks bloggers and podcasts got together to write a Jeremy Lin book, all of which we had on our podcast, they didn't ask us to participate at all. And I was like, oh, cool. Like every Knicks blogger and podcaster except us. That's cool.
I was
like, oh, cool.
We've
had all
these guys. I was friends with like Dan and a few other guys who were part of that book, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. And Jason and all those guys.
Yeah, we had every single one of those guys on the podcast.
I thought it was cool that we just knew all the we talked to all the writers. Jay was like, how dare they?
I just thought it was weird that like they're showing like screenshots of like tweets, and I'm like, couldn't have thrown one of ours in? Okay.
Yeah.
Given that we are, apparently this is the airing of grievances about the Knicks for the last 15 years podcast.
Yes.
I thought maybe we should turn a little bit to the contemporary Knicks, the present day New York Knicks, and figure out if we have grievances to air. So we're going to play a little game, which is called How Worried Are You? So I'm going to give you a sentence.
We're always worried in the show, but go on.
I know. I'm going to give you a sentence, and you're going to give me, on a scale of 1, not worried at all, to 10, this is the thing that preoccupies me and the reason I can't sleep at night, how worried you are about this particular sentence.
Okay.
And we'll start right where we need to. How worried are you that the New York Knicks are not real title contenders this season?
I would say a 5, because I feel like they have a window. The Knicks, they're all in their prime. I feel like we can always tweak the roster, maybe make some moves you can't make now in terms of, first of all, I hate when people are like, I saw a trade proposal today, and someone posted on Twitter, and again, just random person on Twitter, but they posted they want to trade OG and get like Sabonis from Sacramento. Plus, they want the Knicks to give tons of first-round picks that I don't even know the Knicks still have first-round picks to Sacramento to get Sabonis. What in God's name are you people thinking? And also, we're not trading the core 5. The core 5 are staying as is. Mm-hmm. If you want to make moves, there are other guys in the roster, not the core 5.
I actually saw somebody do a fake trade OG to get Randall back.
In fairness, it was Randall's wife who posted that.
Oh, really? Because I thought it was Bear.
I mean,
I would take Dante back, though. I would love Dante back. He fits so well in this team.
Mark and I have been very big Randall.
Yeah, he'd be what we need.
We've been very big Randall supporters, but I wouldn't do the OG Randall thing. To answer your question, I'm closer to a 7, just because I feel like we're getting healthy OG. We had a healthy Towns, and I feel like these windows close faster than you think. Like we thought Milwaukee was going to be good for a long time. Now they're just okay. We thought Denver was starting something, and they look like maybe like a second round team. I don't know. They don't look like they don't look like they're winning a championship right now.
I think Denver's got a shot. Like I'm not. OKC hasn't proven himself in the playoffs yet. Denver is getting they're up and coming, not up and coming basically, but they've been playing a lot better lately.
They have.
Yeah. Well, Jamal Murray looks like a real basketball player again, which was a big part of it.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, Westbrook's getting the attention right now over there, but it's really been like Jamal Murray. There was some game where I opened up the box score and he had like 32 in the first half recently, and
that helps.
They need. So that's the advantage that Denver has if they have an advantage over OKC. is to me is that like they have the secondary scorer, right? They have the guy who, if you're going to double or triple Jokic in the middle, Jamal Murray can still create offense. Whereas Shea is a great player. He's probably the MVP this year. But Jalen Williams, I don't know that he's going to be able to create offense in that sort of secondary space in the way that Jamal Murray can. And that would be the thing that has me worried if I'm an OKC fan.
I mean, OKC looks pretty darn good, obviously. But it should be an interesting playoffs. The Knicks it's not that I'm sure they're a contender this year. I'm just sure within the next 3 years, they have a very good chance.
Yeah. I don't think you're wrong about that, but I think Jay's point is also right. Like you never know what's going to happen, and you can't just say when you have a team that's kind of where the Knicks are, you can't just go around saying like, "Oh, no big deal, we didn't win this year," because you don't know how many chances you're going to get.
Right.
Like,
That's fair.
It is the thing. I mean, the other thing I will say is we have two guys in the starting five, in that core five, who have injury histories, right? In OG and Cat. They both have durability questions, and they've been very durable this year so far. But there's no guarantee that that'll be the same next year. There's no guarantee OG won't pull a hamstring and be out for a month, or Cat won't, hurt his knee or something like that.
Or Cat can't shoot because he has a chip in his thumb bone.
Well, that was actually my next how worried are you? My next how worried are you is how worried are you that Karl Anthony Towns has a bone chip in his hand that will not heal before season's end, and thus his shooting will be compromised for the rest of the year?
9.
I'm not that worried about this. He's had an awesome year shooting wise. I'm gonna say like a 3 here. Like he's still gonna dominate an offense.
Have you seen his shooting the last couple of games since he hurt his thumb?
Okay. It's been like 2 games basically.
yeah, but you guys probably saw the clip where he was talking about it. It sounds like he thinks it's bothering him a lot. Yeah. Usually, like he's saying it is what it is, and then like it's obviously bothering me. So that's
the thing we don't know about it is it the bone chip that's bothering him, or is it the sprained thumb? Because those are the dual diagnoses that he had, right?
Yeah.
So if it's the sprained thumb will get better in a couple of weeks or a month or whatever it is. If it's the bone chip, he may never shoot well again. But,
I mean, can this team be healthy, fully healthy in April, I guess May, basically? Can this team, when the playoffs come, can this team be fully healthy? And if they can, they're going to be dangerous in the playoffs. If they're not fully healthy, then we're screwed.
Yeah.
What do we do about Mitch? Is Mitch going to come back? Is he going to be healthy? I'm a 10 on worried about Mitch.
The latest I heard was that the Knicks front office, quote, is comfortable believing that he will come back the first or second week of February. Now, is that...
Did they say which February?
Is that real, or is that trade deadline positioning? Right. That's
100% trade deadline positioning. So what kind of move would you make with Mitch? Do you just rely on keeping him and like just hope he's better, or do you trade him for someone similar enough? Do you downgrade? What do you, just someone who's healthy so they get on the court? What do you do?
Well, so it's tough, right? Because I think that our biggest bench concern is not center. Like I think if push comes to shove, we can just go with Cat and Achua as our backup center, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. I think our biggest problem is we need another wing off the bench that can take minutes, because like every single game now, I mean, OG and Bridges are just like panting, like they're getting tired. And unless we have someone who can give us like 15 good minutes from that position, play a little defense, give us something, it's going to be a problem. But the issue is I don't know what team is trading for Mitch. Like what I just don't know where he fits. Like any team that trades for him who's trying to do something will have the exact same concerns about him that we do. So yeah, I'm not sure.
You can attach a pick, maybe that make it a little more attractive, but it's still I think Mitch is signed through next year, so it's not even like it's not even an expiring contract.
Yeah, it honestly, it might be the case that keeping him is the best option, and just going into the playoffs and hoping he gives us like one series, kind of like he had against Cleveland a couple of years back, and that might just be the most we can get out of him. I don't know.
And also, as far as wings, like TJ Warren when they can't even sign TJ Warren until the end of the season because of the goddamn salary second apron cap. Like,
well, they can. So I was watching Jeremy Cohen at Knicks Film School.
Okay.
He did a whole podcast about this. They can, but they'd have to trade Mitch. Basically, is what it comes.
Oh well, that's not. Yeah, I mean,
so functionally, like the proposal is the one that keeps coming up, right? Is Mitch for Valanciunas, which is not an exciting trade in and of itself.
Right. It's only exciting for
Valanciunas
Valanciunas.
is fine. He would be a perfectly fine backup center. He does not. He lacks on defense. He lacks everything that Mitch is good at.
Yeah.
Or everything that Tibbs cares about.
And everything that Tibbs cares about. So he would play 10, 12 minutes a game, probably, something like that.
Not changing anything. Yeah.
But trading Mitch opens a TPE, a traded player exception, of about $4 million if you do Mitch for Valanciunas.
Okay.
And with the traded player exception, you can do a lot of different things with that. You could sign TJ Warren into it and still have some of it left. And you can bundle that exception with, so the proposal that he had was to bundle that exception with Sims and Achua and maybe probably some pick compensation to Cleveland for Isaac Okoro, right?
Okay.
So
Cleveland, the best record in the league, is like, what if we could help the Knicks out?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was just giving it as an example, right?
Yeah,
Probably other guys in that salary range.
Right.
That you could maybe do something like that with.
What's the salary there? Like, what salary can they absorb?
So Sims plus Achua plus the traded player gets you to around 12, like 12.5, something in that world. And it's this salary cap is crazy. The CBA rather is crazy. It's so complicated and all these things that work. And we have a $4 million traded player exception from the Malachi Flynn deal last year, but we can't trade it because it would hard cap us at the first apron to trade it the next year. And so we would have to trade it and drop our salary by $11 million. It would be.
Are they teaching the salary cap in calculus now? Because it sounds about as complicated.
Yeah, it's wild. It doesn't make any sense. To me, the trade that I like, I would keep Mitch because I don't think you can get anything approximating the value of Mitch on the floor.
Right. If he comes back, he's going to be flat out better than anything they can trade for.
Yeah. And what I would try to do, there's a couple of guys out there, but you can pair Sims and like Dadier and a pick. And I wonder if you could get somebody. The guy I really want is Cam Whitmore. I don't know that Houston's going to trade him, but he is on the fringe of that rotation.
Right.
So if you could trade Sims and Dadier for like a Cam Whitmore or for like a Jake LaRavia or for like some mid to late first round pick who's on the third or fourth year of maybe the third year of their deal. So you have one more year after this one.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing. And you build out a little wing depth for this year and next. That's the kind of thing that I would do. That's like where I would spend our capital.
With Dadier, who's not going to really contribute this year, but like, do you want to develop him as wing depth?
I mean, that's the other option, right?
Yeah. I mean, he's probably 2 years away from really contributing, but like, do you want to trade away guys who have some like potential? Like, he does seem like he has some potential to like, not yet, but like, he's relevant. That he's a guy you might want to like work on the belt. I mean, I trade him in the right trade, but
you could do Dadier, you could do Kolek, right? Either of those guys you could send out, but you're not going to be able to trade. You're not going to be able to trade garbage for something that's going to play in a Tom Thibodeau rotation, right? It's just
right.
We sent our picks out already, and we can't just send picks out and absorb salary because we're too close to the second apron.
If anything, I think the Knicks would have a better chance, like, to see who gets bought out and have a chance, like, in the buyout market, get someone. I don't know if anyone's even decent going to be bought out, really.
So starting in March,
when Miami buys out Jimmy Butler, we'll get him on the Knicks roster.
Him and Tibbs and Towns back together.
Yeah. Bring the gang together.
Yeah.
Where's Luol Deng at?
If Jimmy Butler came to the Knicks, he'd play 48 minutes anyway, right? So you just like bench OG and Hart for 24 minutes each. You take those minutes away from them and play Jimmy Butler the whole time.
See, guys are getting rested. See, we got a plan.
All right.
So
Speaking
starting
of which,
in
how worried are you that Tom Thibodeau is going to run his starters into the ground, irrespective of the statistical evidence that fatigue hurts their play and could lead to more injuries?
Do you guys think that's a little overrated? The minutes played,
Pat really, really does. I think that it's. I disagree. I think it's a problem.
I don't think fatigue negatively affecting play is overrated.
No, that's totally fair.
I think the minutes played leading to injuries is just as easily explained by correlation as causation, right?
Yeah.
You don't get hurt sitting on the bench.
I was looking through, with Jay on the show recently, we were looking for the last 10 years of the most minutes played in the NBA, the top minutes, and most of the guys on the list were pretty healthy the whole season. I mean, obviously, you have to be healthy to have the most minutes. But generally, guys who are playing lots of minutes, they seem to be fine.
Well, we did it minutes per game, too, not most minutes.
Not just minutes,
And 80%, 8 out of the top 10 guys
minutes per game, that's what we were doing.
Played 70-plus games. So I'm more worried with OG and Towns just because of their previous injury history. I'm not as worried about guys like Hart or Brunson or Bridges.
I'm really worried every time Towns. I like his aggressiveness. Every time he drives to the basket, I'm like, well, this is the play. He's out for the season. Let's just see what happens. Oh, he fell on the ground. He's done. Oh, he's getting up. Okay, next play.
I'm more worried about just that they look tired at the end of games. And,
they really do.
And
it's almost every single game at this point.
Yeah, the shots are falling
minutes
short.
Actually aren't even crazy. He's averaging normal minutes. But maybe he's out there for. He's actually, because he has a backup, because he has Precious, his minutes, it's really OG and Bridges more than anything there, because Brunson has a backup, his minutes are not as crazy.
Yeah.
And Josh Hart.
Yeah, well, Josh Hart is just a superhuman, so I don't even register when he's playing a lot of minutes. He can take it.
He'll play 46 minutes and not even.
Is that we count on him so much at the center of our defense, even though he's a wing, right?
Yeah.
How does he? I mean, you can see it in the way he has played offense in the last month or two.
He's
months,
looked a lot worse.
He is short on most of his threes. He just looks like he's expending so much energy he doesn't have it. When he's gonna be open in big moments on offense, and he needs to be able to hit those shots, right? Yeah.
Do you think even having a TJ Warren out there for 10 minutes a game where he can score and maybe he has the size, I don't know how great his defense is, but OG's minutes I think are the most concerning, and he looks the most tired. If we reduce his minutes 5 minutes a game, would that be the biggest the biggest solution we have?
Well, starting in March, you could prorate salaries so they can get TJ. I think
they could start getting him
500,000. I think they could get him, even if he plays 10 minutes. That's 5 less for Bridges, 5 less for OG. If Mitch comes back healthy, you have a solid 9-man rotation. Even with I'm going to say Shamit's out, but you have a real 9-man rotation of guys Tibbs trusts, and I don't think the minutes are a problem. It all hinges on Mitch coming back, and I guess TJ. Tibbs trusting TJ.
You guys have this thought during the games that you're Tibbs, he's got to play the bench. He's got to play the bench. Wait, we have Shamit and Payne in the game together? What the hell are we doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
I have that feeling when it's Precious and Hart and Anunoby, and that's the front court. And you're playing those guys all together, and it's what is this? How is anyone ever going to score?
The other day he had Precious, Shamit, Payne, McBride. He the whole bench. I'm you could stagger these guys, right? You don't have to
It was Precious, Sims, and Hart. That was the trio.
Oh.
They didn't do that last game, but they did that 2 games ago. And it's what in God's name is this?
A fun question, I guess. Which former Knick would you most like to have back on the team right now, current in the NBA player, that would solve the most problems for the Knicks?
Oh, that's a good question. Let me think about that.
I have a version of this question.
Okay, we'll try your version next.
Yeah.
If we're just talking, we already talked about DiVincenzo. I think he'd give us a little bit of what we need. He's not exactly a wing. He's like a 2. But
he was the Delaware and Michael Jordan, so like he can do it.
Sure. But just someone who can score off the bench and give us competent defense and just eat up minutes. I know there's like a bit of he wants to start, he wants to play, a huge role.
I mean, Hartenstein solves a lot of problems for this team.
Yeah, he's actually the answer, right?
Yeah.
Obviously.
As much as
you pretend it's someone else, you can say it's Porzingis. Obviously, it's Hartenstein.
Yeah,
obviously that's the answer.
But if you want to do like a role player, I think Grimes would be interesting.
Yeah, you'd be interesting.
You could play
defense
12 minutes off the bench, play good defense, hit some threes. That's kind of an interesting guy in the same mold as a DiVincenzo. Right?
I think they need more of a wing to have a backup for Bridges and OG. So for the first time in the history of the podcast, I'm going to say something positive about RJ and say he would be the piece that would help a lot.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, RJ looks like a guy who'd be a very solid off the bench 20 minutes a night game for you guy who just be like, hey RJ, you don't have to worry about playing defense anymore, and he'd be like, I wasn't worried about playing defense.
Yeah. So my version of this question is, we go back further in Knicks history. If you could take any non-All-Star Knick,
because most of the Knicks in the 90s were not All-Stars. Like
Oakley was an All-Star.
Okay, yeah.
He was an All-Star 1 year. So was Starks. If you could take any non-All-Star Knick from the 90s or 2000s and transport them as they were that season, onto this current Knicks team, who would you take? So the reason I say as they were this season is because obviously Tracy McGrady, he was an all-star, but like let's say we transported him, we have to transport the Knick version of him. You can't
take the Jason Kidd from the prime years.
Yeah.
You can't take prime Jason Kidd.
Because the Knicks have a lot of guys that were at the end of their careers, so we're like
unfortunately never Grant Hill, that bastard.
Okay, if we're gonna talk about guys, just throw out names instead of thinking about this out. Anthony Mason would be a decent guy to have in the team.
It's a fun one.
Just a fun one.
Now, does the All-Star after he left the Knicks exclude him from this conversation, or?
I'll allow Anthony Mason. It's fine. The fact that he was an All-Star is a.
Oh yeah.
Is a
the All-Star that
moment of the lack of talent in the NBA at that time. But go
on. Who else from the 90s would make any sense?
So my idea for this is Camby.
Oh yeah, Camby.
Who never made an All-Star team, but was an awesome defensive center. Was defensive player of the year 1 year, and could make a jump shot.
Yeah, I would have thought he would have been. I forgot he was never an All-Star.
Never made an All-Star team.
If we go into the 2000s, Zach Randolph was an All-Star, right?
He was.
Yeah.
David Lee.
David Lee was an All-Star 1 year.
That's
also
right.
an All-Star.
That's
I'm
right.
so sorry.
That's right.
I know we all want to pick Ray Felton, but alas.
I can't believe Ray Felton was not an All-Star.
What about Channing Frye?
That's a good one.
That's a pretty good one. You got some height. Definitely the three-point shooting. That would be really helpful.
Yeah.
Matt Barnes.
There's got to be other. Matt Barnes?
Yeah.
He's a solid role player.
I like Wilson Chandler, too.
I like Wilson Chandler.
And Gallinari, for that matter. Both of them.
Gallinari!
Yeah.
I just want to have him back just to have the announcer like, Gallinari! Could you please not say it that way? Okay! It's amazing. I'm like from the 2000s, since we started doing the show, Jay, who would you have?
Since we started,
it's got to be someone. Since we started doing the show, non-All-Stars. Not that there were so many All-Stars.
Yeah, we had more guys shoot themselves in the leg than we had All-Stars.
Cleon Anthony.
Clay Anthony Early.
There had to be more guys in this. We had so many players on this goddamn roster who are no longer in the league.
What about J.R. Smith? I guess that's 2010.
I can't go through that again.
He made an All-Star team though.
I can't.
He did?
I can't go through that again.
He did not ever make an
All-Star. He did not make an All-Star team. Okay, he was Sixth Man of the Year. Yep. We could use a guy who could score from the bench.
Yeah, as long as he doesn't play on the weekends.
You guys like Shumpert?
Yeah, Shumpert's.
He never was as good as we'd hoped. Basically,
I was watching. So I work from home, so a lot of times I do a lot of stupid data entry work, and I'll just throw on something on the TV.
Yeah.
And I threw on, they had like the best Knicks endings, a compilation of the best Knicks endings of the last 25 years on the NBA YouTube channel. And the first one was that game where Melo hit all those threes against Chicago. First of all, it was weird to see Tom Thibodeau with hair. But, Shumpert was in that game, and he was guarding Rose. This is like 2012 Derrick Rose.
Okay.
And he was like staying with him, staying in front of him, moving him off his spots. That version of Iman Shumpert could absolutely play.
He had that major injury that kind of really like just made him like slower, basically.
Yeah.
What about Courtney Lee?
Courtney Lee could hit free throws. Like every free throw in a row, he could hit the free throws. So
That's true.
I liked
Aaron
Courtney.
Aflalo? You guys like Aaron Aflalo?
For a half a second, Jay and I were like, "Oh, I mean, he's a competent scoring guard. Like, yeah, this could make sense."
Yeah.
Prigioni.
Oh, okay.
I don't think he would add that much to this roster. I mean, like, you already kind of have guys that are better than him.
Yeah, he's kind of like that classic like spark plug guard off the bench, except for we have guys who can actually like shoot and play that position now. Yeah.
Campaign. I mean, like we have enough guys.
I don't know. I think I'd rather Prigioni than Payne or Shamet.
Oh, over Shamet for sure.
Yeah, over Shamet's really.
I mean,
we were like, oh my god, we got Shamet back. This is so oh, fine, forget it. Why do we have Shamet back?
For 6 glorious minutes a game, he was a +10 against the Nets yesterday in those Monday against those 6 wonderful minutes.
I live in Washington D.C. and one of my big laughs throughout the last couple of years was walking around the city and seeing like every team outside their stadium and around the city will throw up like posters of their best player to like hype people into the game. So in D.C. you would see like Landry Shamet like holding a basketball and looking seriously, and I'm just like, who's this bringing into the arena?
That team is wow. Yeah. They are really I mean, like Kyle Kuzma, get ready.
That's the worst roster you've ever seen. It's truly abysmal roster.
I mean, it really is terrible. I don't understand anything. Like, what are they doing? Who's good on Washington?
Koulibaly's okay, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jordan.
Alex Sarr is like 19 and 7 foot, and that's about it, right? That's what they have.
Jordan Poole's a guy that everyone's like, we traded for this guy on this contract?
Yeah. So you guys up for a little bit of lightning round?
Sure, let's do it.
Jay, are you in New York?
Yes.
Okay, great. So these are some New York themed lightning round questions, New York / basketball themed lightning round questions. I'll ask the question. Jay, you answer first. Mark, you answer second. Sound good?
Let's do it.
Here we go. It's Game 7 of the NBA Finals. The Knicks are up 3. There are 7 seconds left. Do you foul or play it out?
Ooh, I'm gonna say play it out.
Really?
Yeah.
You foul. That's what you're supposed to do, Jay. Why the Knicks? Every time the Knicks are like, should they foul? Oh, we're not gonna foul. Oh, he hit the 3.
Well, it's just no matter what you choose, if you don't foul, they hit the 3. If you foul, they make the first free throw, miss the second,
Luka Doncic gets the rebound and the scores. Yes, obviously, but that's
Jay,
you gotta just foul.
Jay, I'm a play it out guy too.
And you gotta like foul the guy's hair. What was the game where Hart fouled the guy's hair?
Kobe White.
And they called it
Chicago.
Yeah.
Chicago. Yeah, they you're like, oh, he touched his hair. That's not a foul. That's literally not a foul. But cool. Another first time in NBA history, but let's screw the Knicks.
Jay, what is your go-to bagel order?
An onion bagel with jalapeno cream cheese.
Oh,
Okay, that's horrible. Why would you do that?
It's delicious.
Like you're like, I'm trying to think of the worst possible comment. Was dog shit not available?
It's delicious. It's delicious.
Everything bagel, cream cheese. I'm a normal human being.
Yeah.
Jay, can you leave New York, Jay?
I like scallion cream cheese, but otherwise,
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
Do you guys know the two Knicks who said in their preseason interview that they don't like bagels?
Josh Hart. No.
Nope. There's a
Towns.
theme between the two.
Okay. You're saying the two players that aren't Jewish. Let's see if we can figure this out.
Yeah, the only two New York
Yep.
Knicks that aren't Jewish. That's right.
Okay.
Was it Towns?
No, I'll give you the answer.
Okay.
It's Huck Porty and Pacom Dadier because they're
Okay.
both European.
Ah.
And they don't like the bagels.
I feel
Are
like
bagels
I
just
was-
not a thing over there? Like, that's weird.
I don't think so. I don't know.
Yeah.
Bagels aren't
really
like,
aren't as you leave the Northeast. They're not as popular.
yeah.
I live in Atlanta, and it is almost impossible to get a good bagel down here.
They really like.
There's one spot that's good. It's now an hour and a half from my house, so I can't go.
Oh wow.
I mean, I used to live in Atlanta, and like you'd be like, "Wow, look at these bagels from Dunkin' Donuts are so good."
That's right. I lived in Minnesota for a while, and there was Einstein's. It was the first time I'd ever seen an Einstein's in my life. After
It's in Atlanta.
After growing up in New York, and I was
Yeah.
like, "What is this? This is horrible."
Well,
I
it's
remember,
like
having Einstein's in Atlanta. I mean, it really is. Yeah.
it's like when you leave the New York, New Jersey area for the first time, and you realize like there's a reason why Domino's exists. Like the rest of the country like needs it.
Yeah. It's actually the
I
better
remember in
pizza
school
option.
when I was in Atlanta, they had events where they'd have like pizza, and the pizza was like this Greek pizza which looked like regular pizza.
Yeah.
If the regular pizza was dipped in water ahead of time, I was like, how do you even serve this? This is disgusting. How do you people not know this?
Oh man, I went to Cleveland, Ohio once with a chorus when I was in high school, and
wow.
they gave us pizza, and it was like it was. I think it must have been like a version of Elio's or something, but it was this giant square that had just cheese on it. There didn't seem to be any sauce at all.
Ooh.
And it was the worst pizza experience I've ever had. I know one other really terrible pizza experience. Real quick, sorry for the sidebar. A friend of mine went to Ireland, and he went into a pub, and he saw pizza on the menu. So he said, "All right, I'm going to have the pizza from this pub in Ireland." And what they brought out to him was a pancake with ketchup and cheddar cheese.
Oh God.
It's like
By the way, on a total side note, if anyone's watching on video, I'm looking at Jay's screen, and Jay has one of the fake backgrounds. When I stare at the fake background, like the fake background keeps flickering in the back.
Yeah.
It's like you're like Jay's about to find out he's living in the Matrix. It's like
Yeah.
literally it's gonna break down. He's gonna find out where he's in the Matrix.
Well, what it is, I think, is your microphone and spit guard, right? That's what
Yeah.
that is right there.
Yeah. the
Okay,
pop
yeah,
filter.
yeah. It's funny how it like looks. That's all.
It does. It's quite a thing. What's your favorite movie?
Hey, it's all simulation. Go on.
What's your favorite movie set in New York City?
Ooh.
You mean not film, but just actually set in New York City?
You mean what? I'm sorry.
Not film, like film that was set in New York City does not necessarily have to be filmed here.
Yeah, that's correct.
Goodfellas?
That's a good answer.
Great answer.
That's a great answer. This is not my favorite, but I was just talking about this earlier today, and it's also what is the best part 3 of a movie?
Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Yes, set in New York.
Oh.
Best, greatest part 3 of ever of a movie.
I was gonna say Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Die Hard with a Vengeance is one of those movies where if you grew up in New York and then you watch the movie, it's like, yes, this is New York. This is everything I want to see in a movie set in New York. It's that it just feels great.
It's such an awesome movie.
It's great. Jeremy Irons is wonderful in that movie. Have you ever seen the original ending of that movie?
There's an original ending.
There's an original.
Okay,
ending.
explain.
Yes.
By the way, spoiler alert.
Original,
Yes.
40 years ago.
spoiler alert for a fake ending or an original ending that was not in the actual movie for Die Hard with a Vengeance. Jeremy Irons gets away with it. So there isn't the scene at the end where they drive.
Oh, with the helicopter.
with anything, right? That doesn't happen. He gets away with it. And then like months later, he's in Europe somewhere in a hotel, and Bruce Willis shows up in that hotel and like executes him in the middle of his hotel room. And that's how that movie originally ended.
Interesting.
I'm getting it's a little fuzzy. I'm getting most of those details right. Like, but the broad picture of it is right.
That's kind of a cool ending.
That's something. More when you think about it, though, any movie could end that way. Like you could just have the bad guy win, and then.
Well, I think they decided it was a little cruel.
Yeah.
For our hero to, hunt and stalk a man months later and then murder him in cold blood.
I mean, I'd like to see the original ending where in like Nightmare on Elm Street where he just gets away with it. Freddy Krueger wins.
Yeah.
You can bring a first-time visitor to New York to one pizza place in the city or Long Island. Where do you bring them?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
That's a tough one. You guys are from New York. Do you guys have an answer for this?
Yeah, I go to Joe's. Joe's
is good. I think you took me there one time, Pat. It's it's some good pizza.
Our previous guest said L&B Spumoni Gardens. I think DeFara is also a good answer.
That's a good one. It's a chain, but I love Patsy's.
Patsy's is great.
Jay, you got an answer here?
I don't, because I moved to Westchester, so now like all my pizza recommendations are in Westchester.
Pizza corner of Westchester.
Yeah.
Jay's thinking of the one place that says best pizza in New York. That one place. If you're not from New York, literally every place says best pizza in New York.
Or famous.
I also think the spicy pepperoni at Prince Street Pizza is worth traveling for. Is the other one I'd say.
I mean, the good thing about New York also is like, whatever you're talking about the best, the like even the worst is like it's hard to find bad. As long as you're not going to a chain, generally, as long as you're not going to a national chain, it's going to be great.
You can walk into any random pizza store called like Vinny's Pizza, and it's going to be better than any pizza you could get in like 99% of cities in the earth.
Yeah,
that is true. Although if you're in Midtown Manhattan or in the financial district, there's some crap pizza down there.
No, well,
I think if you're safer in Brooklyn or Queens to do that kind of stuff.
Any place where it says $1 pizza is probably not that good. Also,
that's fair enough.
My theory is if it's right outside a subway station, it's probably not good because they don't have to be good because they get enough foot traffic to just get business.
Fair enough.
What's the last Broadway show you saw?
Jay.
This was a while ago. Was it Phantom of the Opera? It's a long time.
Did you go in 1975?
I don't know, man. Why are you asking me?
Jay's like, I've never seen a Broadway play.
Right.
I saw Hamilton over the summer with my wife.
Fine. Great show.
Yeah, fine. I guess there's nothing going to be Knicks related there.
No, it's New York.
Well, New York, yeah.
Yeah.
When Deuce McBride said his favorite hobby was philosophy, what do you think he meant?
I assume he meant the philosophy of, hey, youngins, these minutes matter. I played these minutes. And listen, I would have gotten this really unbelievably terrible contract if not for the fact I played so hard.
I think he's been hanging out with Phil Jackson a little.
Leon Rose, before they gave just Deuce McBride the contract, they were like kind of giggling like he's going to ask for something bigger. He's not going to just sign the contract. He's literally just not going to sign this contract for basically league minimum over the next 4 years. And then they're like, he signed it. Holy shit, he signed it. They were immediately about to go up to $10 million a year, and they're like, he signed the contract. Okay, cool.
He signed that contract before he was contributing in any meeting.
Yeah, he wasn't. They knew they were about to up his minutes, and they were like, let's just see if he'll fall for this.
It was functionally a rookie contract, right? That's basically what it was. That's how it functioned, and it worked out great. God bless him.
It worked out great. It's going to suck when I think he has one more year.
One more year. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they have to pay him. Not that. Yeah. Just they have to pay him more money, basically.
Yeah. This is for another time, but I wonder if they will shop him this offseason.
He's one of my favorite Knicks.
Me too.
Top 6 easily.
I love him, but I love him. You need in this cap era. You need contributors at low dollar figures, right?
Yeah.
To sustain your ability to pay the top guys.
You also have to be kind of like, you have to be just an asshole when you're building a roster. Yeah. You have to be willing to like make the moves. If you were the Celtics, you were like, Marcus Smart is like the heart of our team. He won Defensive Player of the Year before. We can't just move Marcus. Okay, sure, we want to win a title. We got to move on from him. Like, you have to be willing to make those. And Marcus Smart, maybe decent like analogy there. You have to be willing to move the players.
And the last lightning round question, because this has moved so quickly, is who are the 4 faces on your Knicks Mount Rushmore?
Ewing.
Yeah, I go with Ewing. Yeah.
Oakley. I know he's got some stuff going on right now, but he was my favorite growing up.
Okay, here's Jay. Before you even finish this, how soon until you add? Is Brunson already on there, or how soon do you add him?
I'm not going by like best players. I'm just talking about like
but like the most meaningful. Like realistically, like Ewing, Oakley, can't argue with that. I'm not gonna go pre them. I went watch basketball before the '90s. I can't go earlier than that. But like Melo, you could put on there. But then besides Melo, who else? I mean, Brunson he's only been here for like 2.5 years. But it's unbelievable how good he's been.
Yeah.
Well, it's not even a question of like, is it Brunson or Melo? Like, I think Brunson he's like light years ahead of Melo.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm answering it as like my favorite, not most impactful. So I'm going to go with Sprewell and Josh Hart.
Ooh. Okay. Ewing, Oakley, Sprewell, Josh Hart.
Yeah.
Right.
Just as like my favorite
Jay
players.
Just had Hart, then he's like, I want one guy who tried to murder his coach, and like he only had Sprewell.
I love.
You need one wild card on your Mount Rushmore just to keep people
you need
honest.
A Teddy Roosevelt. That's right.
I guess I think I would just do the just because of the error. I mean, like the Melo era, I have to put Melo on there. Jay really just hated Melo the whole time. Like Jay liked Melo for like 5 minutes and then got annoyed by him.
Yeah.
Brunson, though, I had to put up there because he's just awesome. Like the fact that like how amazing that move has, like, it is insane. We were like, hey, let's try to get the backup point guard from Dallas. Let's give him a contract that's kind of big, but will look amazing when he steps on the floor for us.
Yep.
Is there like how many other signings can you think of that were this impactful for any team?
I don't know, and it's going to be impactful too for like a decade, right? That's the crazy part. I mean, like, signings. That's tricky because
just any team
traded for Shaq, right?
Just think of a signing, but like Shaq was like, at least that guy was an all-star already. You took a guy who was he was a role player, bench player, and became a top 10 player in the NBA on his new team.
Yeah.
Does anyone? I mean, James Harden was like, he came off the bench for OKC, kind of like he became a top player.
He was also the 3rd overall pick in his draft.
Third overall
right?
pick,
so
not
like an unknown quantity.
Yeah,
people knew what he could do.
I can't think of another move that's this insanely different between what we got the backup point guard and became an all NBA player.
Jermaine O'Neal.
Jermaine O'Neal.
But he was also like a top pick, though. Jermaine O'Neal.
Would you rather have Jalen Brunson or Jermaine O'Neal in his prime?
Yeah, Brunson.
Yeah.
If you were just gonna make a top 10 like Knicks of all time team, I mean, it would be insane to put Brunson on there already. But you'd be like, you talk about it at least.
I don't think it's insane to put him on there.
Yeah,
I know, but it sounds.
I mean, the question is really how many of those '70s Knicks do you put on that team?
Right. The game has changed, and like.
So I mean, you have to put Frazier and Reed on there, but past that, like, that's where it becomes a question.
Right.
Well, we end every episode with, it's a tradition here to end with recommendations. That is something outside of the world of basketball that you recommend to our audience to either, if it's a movie to watch, if it's an album to listen to, if it's a new brand of underwear to wear. We've done all those things in our past.
Jay is going to recommend the New York Mets. He's a big baseball fan. He's excited for the upcoming season.
Well, Bear and I are Yankee fans, so we are going to edit that out of this podcast. And
Jay also hates baseball, but
we're going to just put a big red X over his face for the entirety of this podcast too.
Jay, what? Yeah, go, Jay. You go first, Jay.
There's a series of books called the Orphan X series by Greg Hurwitz, and it's excellent. So yeah, I would recommend that series.
Will this be a movie in the future? Like, is it that good?
I think they're working on a movie. Yeah.
What's the general premise?
So this guy was like in almost like a black ops government, like off the books government thing, and he broke away from it and went dark. And so his new thing is that he finds people that are in like impossible situations and helps them. And then he asks them to like pass his number on to like somebody else who's in that situation. But the government's trying to find him because they're trying to erase like every trace of this thing. So like he's trying to hide from the government while helping people. It's a lot of action and very fast pace.
So it's very much in the world of like The Equalizer or Jack Reacher or something.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Cool. Mark? I'm going to recommend. It's the best show Apple TV's made. Severance. Have you guys watched Severance?
Yeah, that was my recommendation last week.
Okay, I obviously didn't listen.
No. I'm just saying, I love that show.
I love it so. Like you watched the first episode. We're not going to give spoilers, but you watched the first episode of this season.
I watched the first episode.
I immediately was like, oh my god, like this is so much better than anything else I'm watching. I really want to see what happens.
I watched the first episode like the day after it came out or whatever, and then I was so upset that I couldn't watch the second one. I went back and I rewatched the entire first season in the interim, and it's really amazing. Every episode ends with like it's such a nice mystery, and every episode ends with like a big turn, and you're just like, what's gonna happen next? Yeah,
I felt like the first season, like you're like, what? It's such an interesting. So for those who don't know, the premise basically is your work self and your home self are severed. You get on the elevator to go on to work. Your work self turns on, and your work self and your home self have no memory of each other, basically. So it'd be nice to go to work and just like 5 seconds later you're leaving work because your work self has worked for those 8 hours. Mm-hmm. But it's such an interesting premise to begin with. Parts of the first season were a little slow, and at some point you're like, "What? It's such a weird show. What is going on?" At the end of the first season, you're like, "Holy crap! I need another episode. This just got unbelievable." And they're like, "Okay, in about 3 years we'll put the next episode out." Yeah. You're like, what? But wow, I just watched the season finale before I watched the first episode of this season. And I was watching that and I'm like, wait, I don't even know what the hell's going on. I almost went back to the episode 8, then episode 10. I was going backwards.
Yeah.
But it's an awesome show. I highly recommend it.
Yeah. Next episode's coming out tomorrow, I think.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
It's awesome, guys. I just want to say, Bear, were you going to recommend something?
No. I got nothing. I was going to recommend Severance again.
I'll come on every week to recommend Severance with you.
I'd like to recommend a little unknown show called Severance.
Yeah.
Jay,
you guys read the Bible? I recommend that. Go on.
A lot of good stuff in there. Yeah.
You recommended getting an 8 hours of sleep a night. That's really great.
I recommend exercise. Have you guys tried it?
Not for a while. Anyway, thank you guys for coming on. It's been a real delight to have you here. We're just so grateful that you joined us on the Knickerbrothers podcast.
Yeah, thanks for coming, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Awesome.
All
right, guys, let's go Knicks.
Let's go Knicks.
Dr. Dogbreath made a really cool Knicks song, so I'm going to leave you with that instead of our usual outro. So enjoy, and good job, Dr. Dogbreath.
Yeah. From the Statue of Liberty to Central Park, New Yorkers come to life at dark. 20 years of bad contracts and pain, false hopes and promises, never again. Empire State glowing in orange and blue. The New York Knicks are coming for you, coming for you. Jerome James, a contract turned sour. 30 million wasted, fans left to glower. J.R. Smith's late nights, the club lights aglow. Phil Jackson's Zen fading with nowhere in tow. The Knicks got worse and worse. Following the team felt like a curse. We are the New York Knicks, in orange and blue. Madison Square Garden, we're coming for you. From Ewing to Brunson, our spirit burns bright. Go New York, go New York, we'll win this fight. Let's go Knicks. Let's go Knicks. Through it all, Clyde stands tall and proud, a beacon of hope for the Garden crowd. Through tourists and traffic, through triumph and pain, the Knicks spirit rises again and again. From Brooklyn Bridge to Times Square's lights, the New York Knicks will always fight. The tide is now turning, our moment is near. Vips brings the strategy, the players adhere. Randall's determination, Brunson's sharp play, bringing OG's defense, he'll lead the way. We're hunting for Cat to complete our dream. New York basketball's new team. We are the New York Knicks, in orange and blue. Madison Square Garden, we're coming for you. From Ewing to Brunson, our spirit burns bright. Go New York, go New York, we'll win this fight. Let's go Knicks. Let's go Knicks. From bagels at dawn to Broadway at night, we ride the subway and are ready to fight. Some days are tough, some dreams get crushed, but New York's energy can't be hushed. Wait, Bridges is joining too. All we need is a cat to add to the stew. Let's go Knicks. Let's go Knicks. We are the New York Knicks, in orange and blue. Madison Square Garden erupts right on cue. From legends to newcomers, our passion is one. Go New York, go New York, our time has come. Let's go Knicks. Let's go Knicks. We are the New York Knicks, in orange and blue. Madison Square Garden is rocking right through. Go New York, go New York, our time has come. Let's go Knicks.